Hi everyone, welcome to my presentation on Introduction to Variables in Python. This session is designed for the beginners or like anyone new to programming, or we can even call lower level division class students who would find it easy and understand it correctly. So we'll talk about what variables are and how to use them and why they are important in programming. Also, by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to create, use, and modify. You'll be able to, yeah. So, you'll be able to create and, variables, modify them, and then in your own Python code. So, this is just the basic to get started, and then, yeah. And also, sorry to say, yeah, my name is Kausar Jahan, and I will be taking you over this journey. All right. Okay, so let's go. What is a variable? So, a variable is basically a name for a piece of information. So, if let's say, think of it like a labeled container, okay, and you can put something inside, like a number or a piece of text, and you can refer to it later by its label. So that is a variable in programming in Python basically. Precisely, we are talking about Python. So yeah, in programming, variables store data that can change or be reused throughout a program. So variables store data, and it stores a piece of information, right? So we assign it a name to whatever it's storing. So, for example, if you store your age in a variable called age, you can use that same value in multiple places without having to type it again. That is the actual power of a variable. That is the actual use of it. Suppose if your age is around 15, okay, and it's 15 and you need to keep using it like 15 everywhere on your like whatever or your code, so it will make it look like really ugly. And sometimes if it is 15 it's good, and if it's a large number or if it's a very big piece of information, rewriting it again and again, it's not good, right, every time. So variables come into place that point where you can use the name where you assigned for that variable, and you can use that variable name anywhere in your code. It will make it look like properly formatted, easy to go and remember. So that is a variable. Okay, all right, let's move on to the next slide. So what we have as slide 3 is a variable assignment. So okay, if you see on my slide, there are three different variables: name, alias, age 20, is underscore student is true. So people basically use like the underscores in Python to like to make a variable chain, like if you're using is underscore student to make your code look easy, good, formatted, and readable. So that is the main point of it just makes easy for the reader to go through our code. So in Python, assigning a value to a variable is really very simple. You just use the equal sign, like if you can see, name equals alias, okay. So and you put it in a single quote or a double quote, right? So name equals alias. Also age equals 20, is underscore student equals true. So here the name is a string, okay, age is a number, and is underscore student is a boolean. So now it's really if I feel like beginners really wonder how can it be, like how can we write all the different types of data types. So Python automatically understands the type of data, right? So we don't have to tell it it's a boolean, it's a string, or it's a number, or it's a whole, it's a float, or whatever. So Python really has that feature to like understand if it's a string or a boolean, or a number. So this is a variable assignment. We call it as a variable assignment, where we assign like a piece of information to a variable. So this name is variable, okay? Alice is into the name. Age is 20, so age is a variable we are assigning. So this is called a variable assignment. Okay guys, all right, let's move on to our next slide. Okay, printing variables. So printing variables is also another interesting part in Python. Once you've stored a value in a variable, you'll probably want to see it, right? So if you go back to our previous slide, and if we store Alice in name variable, we would really want to like see it, like to see on the console, like on the output terminal. So we can just see it. So we need something to see it on our terminal, right, on our output result window. So we have a variable we can use, like printing. So print, open braces, open brackets, and then name. Print, open brackets, age, close brackets, and then print, open brackets, is underscore student, and then close. Okay, so once you've stored a value in a variable, as I already told you, we have to see it on a particular window or a terminal. So print variable helps us to do that. So when you run this, like when you run print of name in the console, in the Python console, you will see that the Python will output. So if what we saved was name as Alice. So when we run this part, print of name Alice, so the output window, we can see the name Alice, we can see the age 20. So yeah, this would be visible on the output screen when we go ahead and run these commands in Python. So this is where Python uses printing variable. And then if we move on to the next slide, okay, changing variable values. So I also wanted to get into your notice, bring it to you that variables are not fixed, so you can change them anytime. You can change them at any time. So for example, if we say name equals Bob and age equals 21, okay? So name equals Bob and age equals 21. This updates the value stored in name and age. So if we go back to our previous slides, we assigned the name variable to something else, which was Alice, okay, and age was 20. So if we change it to Bob and age to 21, so the thing is, it updates the values which were stored in name and age to the current ones. Then it will remove the previous ones, and it will save the Bob and 21 instead of Alice and 20, which we did earlier. So this flexibility allows your program to store and update information as it runs. Okay, and so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so common data types we have. So I hope you guys are familiar with the data types we have commonly, but if not, here's the thing on the screen. We have int, which is whole numbers, like 10. We have float, decimal numbers, which are like 3.14, 2.2, 2.1011 example. And we have string, which is a text, like you put something in a double quote or single quote, you say hello, you say place, you say name, and you put it in here. And we have another data type called boolean, which is true or false. It's just straight. So we just only have two true or false in a boolean. And the integer, float, string, and boolean, these are the common data types we will see. So knowing the type of the data, like knowing the data type, is really important because it affects what you can do with the variable. So for example, you can add two integers together, but you can't directly add a string to a number without the conversion. So there is a difference, and it really matters. It is really important to know the difference between them and their types. And you will understand this in the future as we go ahead. And let's move on to the next slide. So naming rules. We have naming rules, so the valid naming rules are as follows. You can see it on the slide. So when creating variable names, we follow some rules. So must start with a letter or an underscore. It can start with, sorry, my bad. Okay, so it can start with a letter or an underscore. Can contain letters, numbers, underscores, but no spaces or special characters like hyphen, dollar sign, hashtag, those sort of things. So it cannot even start with a number, cannot be a Python keyword like print or input because it's already a Python keyword, right? Input, print, so we cannot use them. We can only start with a letter or underscore and don't use any special character. So yeah, for example, student underscore name equals Alex, so this is valid. So if we see in the invalid section, one like first underscore place equals John, so this is not valid because it starts with a number. All right, so the either ways it goes with age and this. Okay, so next, if we go through slide 8, okay, best practices. Following these best practices, initially as a beginner will help you to, uh, you know, make it easy for you guys to move forward. So best practices you can do is use descriptive names that explain what the variable holds. For example, like total underscore instead of ts. So if you use total underscore score, it is really easy for anyone to tell what are we talking in our code, and it is really readable and easy to understand. So using those descriptive names will help with that, like it will really help you guys. So also using lowercase letters with underscores for multiple words, maybe this is called this is called snake case in Python basically. um, if you use multiple underscores in your variable and in lowercase, this is really a good practice which all the Python developers and everyone like the coders will follow. And also we need to avoid those, the last one, avoid reserved keywords, example print, input, or any function names like mags, min, or things like that, because it is already a Python keyword. It is reserved in Python for some particular sort of function. So we just cannot use them, and it will we will end up messing our program, and it will end up really bad. So yeah, so that is why we need to use clear names to make your code easier for others to read and for us to understand later at any point, moving forward. So yeah, let's look at the next slide, which is an example problem. So it's really a simple one. So full name, okay, full name, first name, age 19, print full name, age, next. Okay, so here we store first underscore first name, okay, as Emily, and then last name, and then age. Then we combine the first name and the last name into a new variable called a full name, and now we're gonna print that full name and the age. So we also calculate what the person's age will be next year by adding 1 This is nothing but the concatenation to the age variable. So this is how we do, basically. And it's a simple example problem combining first name and last name and age, and predicting what it will be in next year. So a very basic one. I hope you guys understand this. And then if we go on to our next slide. Okay, slide 10, user input with variables. So variables can also store data entered by the user. So for example, name equals input of what is your name. Here the program asks for your name and stores it in a variable called name, and then greets you and prints you. Like, this is how we make programs interactive. So when you run this line of code, okay, it asks it asks the user to enter what is your name, and then we enter, suppose, Emily, and then it prints hi comma Emily. So this is the input function of Python. And if we move on to the next slide, so if we see why variables matter. Okay, variables are essential in programming because they let you reuse and update data easily. Like as we saw earlier, like it updates to the new data whatever we give. So it is really helpful and it reuses, right? So yeah, they are a core part of programming language. It's a really core concept of it. And then they are also used in every real world program you'll ever write, like for small scripts to large applications. Without variables, programs would be repetitive and difficult to maintain. So this is the other thing. And if we move on, I think we've covered a lot of like little aspects of variables, and this is really important for a beginner or like a lower division student to get started with. So I hope we did that. And then if we move on to the next slide, so we are here to recap and practice. So let's recap what we learned. So what is a variable and how to assign values and common data types and naming rules. And then we can write a mini program on our own using variables, right? So how to change them. So now this these are all the concepts which we covered, and we can also practice using little examples and moving forward. So now I would really give you a practice task. So if you are really ready, or if not, go back to the previous slides or in the lecture in the video and stop and ask questions, or like send me comments, whatever you guys feel like asking. And then if you're confident enough to write your own mini program, so here's a practice task if I would like to give you all. So write a program that asks the user's name and their age, and then print a message with their name and their age in 5 years. So I hope it's clear using, because we earlier saw an example how to write like a person's full name and their age, and adding one, for the next year to know their age, what their age will be around next year. So we are doing is, in this a practice task is like writing a program that asks the user's name and age, and then okay, it's a full name, and then prints a message with their full name and their age in next 5 years. So this is a simple practice task which I would like to assign to you guys if you're good. And then I think that's how we go to the end. So that's the end of our session in variables in Python. Feel free to ask me if you guys have any questions. And then before you go again, I have a practice challenge for you. Write a program that calculates the area of rectangle using variables. So where I can really give you a little hint, where because using the length and the width, because the area of rectangle consists of width and length, and then it prints the result. So I hope you guys can um, practice ace the practice challenge which I gave, and feel free to ask if you have any questions related to our video lecture. So thank you so much for watching, and happy coding. Thank you so much. See you guys.